for years, so he was driving away from the big city. He needed some time on his own. The state of Wisconsin proved to be an excellent choice for him. Jake's late parents had a cabin somewhere north in the woods. He was headed in that direction in order to escape for a few days. Sleepiness crawled over him, and he had a hard time concentrating on the road. He was driving for many hours now. But driving was also a thing which he loved. Long roads were his favorite. Since his wife and son had died, he was often on the road. Sometimes Jake just got into the car and drove off to nowhere. The road wasn't lit very well. It was a country road after all. It hadn't been rehabilitated since 1980. Now, in 2005, condition was already decayed by weather and because of the high frequency of truck traffic. Now, the trucks try to avoid this road as much as possible because of poor condition. Many of the lights weren't working, and nobody bothered repairing them. Jake had to pay extra attention to the road and anything on the side. He didn't want to risk getting a deer or wild boar. He reached a wooded area. I must be close, he thought. Pressed the gas pedal a little harder. After passing a dangerous curve, Jake spotted one of the light poles. Right behind the light pole, there was a sign which stated that there's a gas station about 1 mile down the road. He glanced at the instrument panel. It showed that there's still some gas in the tank. Glancing back at the sign, he saw that the light wasn't working properly. It kept fading and brightening again. It was a strange occurrence. Jake couldn't remember seeing anything like that before. Then his eyes caught something near his shadows. It looked like there was a person standing there. For a moment, he thought he saw a pair of circular red eyes. Or were they red lights? He slowed down a bit, but couldn't see more. So, he kept on driving. The front lights of his car flickered erratically, and he was in line of sight. They were even out for a few seconds. Radio went crazy, switching channels in a chaotic manner, until he got past the sign. After about 30 yards or so, everything went back to normal. This strange event woke him up from his lethargic state. Jake thought that his battery might not be working properly. Faulty wiring combined with some interference might explain both of the phenomena. It was weird, however, that they happened at the same time. Coincidence like this had a tiny chance of happening. God, I'm tired, he thought, and sped up some more in order to reach the gas station as soon as possible. A few minutes of rest, and he'll be on his way. Maybe a cup of coffee would be a good idea. Jake hoped to find a vending machine there, and if strange events won't repeat themselves, then it will be alright, continue. The tired man kept looking around to see if he can spot anything unusual between the trees. He couldn't see anything out of the ordinary. There were only oak and maple trees everywhere he looked. Lush vegetation surrounded the road from both sides. The dark parts, though, made him feel uneasy. He had to slow down and drive with extra care when going through those parts where the lights were out. The gas station appeared in front of him. It was a well-lit place, but not big. In front of the station, where the pumps had been placed, was covered by a metallic roof supported by an old steel structure. He then stopped his red 1993 BMW at one of the pumps and filled up the tank. Another car was parked at the other pump. There were only 4 of them. When Jake looked inside, he saw a woman and a little girl through the windows. They were looking around as if they didn't know what to buy. He looked around again, but couldn't see anything. Lights were all bright around the place, so he wasn't able to discern much of anything far away. What he had seen earlier left an uneasy feeling inside of him. A shadow with a strange shape. Or was it his imagination? He got out of the car and pulled up the zipper of his leather jacket. It was a little windy around here. Autumn had already arrived, so the weather kept getting colder each day. His legs had a hard time walking. He had spent a considerable time in a seated position, so his joints felt heavy and rusty. Jake wasn't too old. In fact, he was only 44, and still as healthy as a man can be at that age. The stubble on his face already turned into a beard. He hadn't shaved for a few days. His sunken cheeks and droopy eyes betrayed tiredness and past heavy encounters with the bottle. He filled up the tank, then went inside the station and bought himself a coffee from the vending machine. He waited for the clerk while listening to the pleasant music which was playing in the background. It must have been the radio, but he couldn't see where it was. Then the gas station clerk came to the counter a few seconds later. He was a tall black guy, also a little skinny. The man didn't look tired at all, maybe a little bored. He had thick lips and dark brown eyes, characteristic of African American people. Jake paid for the gas. Before he could leave, an agitated man rushed inside. He was in his 50s and sported an enormous belly. The blue baseball cap on his head was dirty and soaked in sweat. The man's hairy chest was heaving. Jake could see that because of the partially unbuttoned striped shirt the man was wearing. Hey, something's out there. What? There's something out there I saw. What's out there? I don't know. So what? Maybe it was a man. Yeah, but he was black. No shit. I'm black too, man. No, not like that. He was completely black. I'm completely black too. No, not like that. Look, about a mile from here, that way. Near the road. I saw it too. Look, I don't know what the two saw, but I ain't seen shit right. So with all due respect, please stop talking crazy stuff. Scaring the lady and her little daughter. He pointed towards the woman and child. They were close by. The woman was nice-looking brunette with long curly hair and had a decent physique. He was talking to her daughter, who also had brown hair and an angelic face. The little girl looked about 10 years old. Look, man, I think that what we've seen was just a trick. No, it wasn't. Look, I saw it moving. The lights of my car went out. I barely got here, man. Couldn't see a damn thing. Come on, man. Cut the bullshit. We're all trying to get through the night. So please, calm your ass down. Just after the clerk finished the sentence, the lights on the road went out. They all threw concerned looks towards the road. See what I mean? Are you people satisfied now? Oh, come on. Them lights weren't repaired in 100 years. Damn it. Alright, then I'm out of here. Whatever that thing was, it's coming. Hey, was it beside the big road sign? Sort of. It was further down the road, by the light post, not far away from the sign. The light wasn't on. Probably wasn't working. Anyway, I'm not sticking around much. Crept the fuck out of me. The guy's crazy. But deep down inside, Jake knew that the other man was right. Yeah, man, but haven't you said you seen it too? Look, honestly, I don't know what I've seen. Jake didn't like this. There was one more person who had seen the strange apparition, and there might have been something there after all. He didn't see it well, and didn't want to draw a conclusion. Might have just been a prank by local kids. He remembered a story from the teens. What he saw earlier was eerily similar to that. A long time ago, he and a few friends cut a piece of cardboard in order to resemble an evil face. Then they folded it up, looked like a cylinder. After that, they glued a piece of cardboard to the top and one to the bottom. It resembled a jack-o'-lantern in the end. They cut a hole in the back, put a candle inside. Then they stuck the thing on a tree in the park in their hometown. After nightfall, a young boy and girl came to have some fun where nobody could see them. When they noticed it, they got scared and ran away screaming. Jake smiled at the thought. He still saw their scared faces. It sure looked like one of those pranks. The woman and the girl just arrived at the counter, and the woman wanted to pay. Jake looked at the woman and her child. They both looked back at him, smiled. He did the same and headed to the door. Don't even think about it, he thought. You don't deserve it. The little girl's face struck him. She resembled his late son, Clark. The girl had the same cheeks, very similar nose, and the look in her eyes, just like Clark's. She was smiling with her eyes too. She was beautiful. Her smile brought back some painful memories. These memories dated back 4 years, and Jake hated them as much as he hated himself. His wife and his son were no more because of him. Only death could save him, the guilt he was feeling. He didn't start a new life since their death. He couldn't. The road was his salvation when he wasn't working. Jake was driving because this way he'd avoid the damn bottle. He couldn't drink himself to death being behind the wheel. His life mattered little to him, and he didn't want to kill anybody else. Sometimes he was fantasizing about saving somebody else at the expense of his own life in order to die, at least, half at peace. Jake walked out the front door and saw the big guy driving out the station. He was driving an old pickup truck, and Jake was wondering how it was still in one piece and didn't fall apart 100 years ago. The man wasn't hesitating much. He must have stepped on the gas really hard because he was out of the road in no time. The fat man was speeding away, his decrepit excuse of a car, no working lights, and he disappeared behind the trees. He didn't get far, however, as Jake heard tires screeching and then loud crashing noise. Crashing noise was quickly followed by a harsh metallic one, then an elongated scream. Jake couldn't see anything because of the lush vegetation surrounding the station, but he knew it was bad. Rushed back inside right away. Hey, I think the big guy had an accident. All right, I'm coming right away, said the clerk. Grabbed the flashlight. He then ran outside, right behind Jake. The woman and the child remained inside. The woman didn't want her daughter to see anything related to an accident. Jake reached the man's fat car. It looked like the man tried to avoid something on the road. Something he saw too late. The car hit an enormous tree and now lay on the side of the road, smoking. The two men looked inside the car, but they couldn't see the driver. They saw right away that the steering wheel was bloody. It was an old car, so it most likely didn't have an airbag. I mean, even if it had one, it obviously wasn't working. They noticed that the right-hand door wasn't where it should have been. It was ripped out of its hinges and lying about 5 yards away between the trees. The impact didn't look so forceful for the door to be that far away. Even for a wreck of a car like a pickup truck, it appeared impossible. What the hell happened here? Look, man, I don't know. No sign of the fat dude. Both men then looked around the car and under it. The men even searched their surroundings, but they found nothing. Jake's guts twisting, turning. The sight of the red-eyed shape came back to him. If it were only for him to see it, it would have been fine. The really unnerving fact was that the fat guy had also seen something even closer to the station. What if that thing reached the station? Maybe the road lights turning off were a sign that it was here. Look, it's a mess, man. Yeah, but where the hell did he go? Look, I don't know, but let's not just stand here. I'm gonna call emergency. Yeah, that's a good idea because I heard a scream. That door, something took him. Yeah, man, something big. But I ain't gonna wait here to see it. All right, man. Let's go. Let's get back inside. The men were heading back towards the station. Right before turning from the main road onto the driveway, they met the woman and her daughter. Hey, what are you doing? Not safe here. But Jake saw that they were both trembling. Mister, the lights went out. Yeah, thought it was strange, so we came outside. We didn't feel safe inside. We heard something. Yeah, there were sounds coming from the back. Alright, look, let's get back first, and we'll see. They all went back to the station. The clerk was in front with the flashlight. The girls were behind him, and Jake in the back. For a short time, he turned and walked backwards. He kept his eyes on the road, but couldn't see a thing. The night was still, and nothing moved on the moonlit road. Not a car passed. He arrived. It really did seem like an abandoned road. He was wondering why the owner of the gas station hadn't gone out of business. It seemed that the owner made little money out here. Jake turned, found himself staring at the woman's hips. He liked how they swayed. She wore tight jeans, which accentuated her curves. A thin jacket, made of some material which resembled leather, covered the upper body. Beautiful woman, thought Jake again, then looked away, distaste. The distaste was for him because he began fantasizing about some woman or people dying. In the end, he thought, primal urges always win. My name is Curtis, by the way. Hi, I'm Jenna. This is my daughter, Claire. Not the best circumstances to make friends, huh? Definitely not. I'm Jake. Nice to meet you. Alright, I'm gonna check the brake panel out back. Alright, Curtis. I'm staying here with the ladies. Curtis went around the building, and Jake remained with Jenna and Claire. Little girl was hugging her mother. Jenna was keeping her hand protectively over Clara's shoulder. Jake then crouched in front of the girl, smiled comfortably at her. She smiled back. How old are you, Claire? I'm 10. Well, Claire, me and Curtis are gonna find out what's happening, and then... He couldn't finish because there was a loud curse coming from behind the building. Motherfucker. It was Curtis. Alright, stay here. Don't drive away because we don't know what's out there. Jake ran after Curtis and found him frozen, a blank stare on his face. When he turned toward the breaker panel, he saw what frightened the clerk. Blood and brains covered the panel surrounding wall. That guy's body was on the ground near the panel. His face was gone, along with about half of his head. Now they understood why there was no light at the station. The thing that took the man from his pickup truck brought him here, bashed his head to a bloody pulp on the breaker panel, which got damaged. What the hell? Asked Jake. He couldn't really say anything else. Look, this is why we got no electricity. Panel's broken. I'm calling 911. Jake and Curtis then ran back to the girls. He could see right away that something was wrong. What's wrong? Nothing. Come on, come inside, said Jake as calmly as possible. Oh, wait. What happened back there? Look, let's just go inside, please. The girls obeyed, and after they entered, they saw Curtis frantically buttoning his phone. Could somebody please tell me what's wrong? Jake then took her by the hand and pulled her away from Claire, and quickly told her about the body. She gasped in fright, but tried to muffle it with her hand. Jake told her they would try to call the authorities, solve the problem without Clara knowing much of it. Protecting the little girl was imperative. He didn't want her to be traumatized at such an early age. Damn, my signal is bad. Here, let me try the landline. He picked up the phone, dialed 911, then waited. Somebody picked it up, then the line went dead. After a few more times, it worked again. The line didn't go dead right away, so he could speak to some extent, but then it went dead again. Did it work? I don't know. I talked to an operator, but I'm not sure she could hear me right. Let's hope they received at least where we are. So what now? We wait. For what? Can't even be sure if help is on the way or not. Because the thing that did Jake began, then realized it is a mistake and stopped mid-sentence.
What thing?
Nothing, honey. Could you please help Curtis find what he was looking for?
Yeah, sure.
Look, sorry for scaring your daughter, but going away is risky. We don't know what's out there.
Then why is waiting here a better option? That thing could be anywhere, even inside.
Yeah, I know. But I saw the fat guy drive away. Now he's dead, alright?
Looks like we don't have a right option.
No, not really. The only sure thing is that being outside is deadly. Also, there has to be something with the lights.
Yo, what do you mean?
The road outside is not well lit.
Yeah, damn politicians ain't wanna fix shit here.
Yes, I know. The thing is, when the fat guy left, his lights weren't working.
Yeah, he told us, man. I remember now, but what's your point?
Yeah, what's with the lights? He also said his lights went out when he saw something on the roadside. I saw it too. When I got close to it, the lights went downright crazy.
You mean like in the horror movies? I don't like horror movies.
Yeah, something like that. And that thing, it was not human.
You listening to yourselves? Really? Horror movies? Monsters?
You two must have smoked something. Alright, come with me.
Excuse me?
Look, just come with me. I'll show you something. I won't hurt you, don't worry.
Alright. Watch my daughter, Curtis. Yes, ma'am. No problem.
Jake took a flashlight from Curtis and led the way outside. He knew it wasn't a good idea at all, but he also wanted to make sure that Jenna understood the situation they were in. They went back to where the breaker panel was, along with the dead man.
What the fuck? What? What's wrong?
There should have been a dead body here.
Oh my God,
said Jenna, and her hands jumped to her mouth. The bloodstains were still there. Bits of brain were still plastered to the panel. It looked like something bashed the poor man's head against the panel with substantial force.
Oh my God. Is that?
Looks like a tongue? They stared for a second at the fat man's tongue, which laid in a small puddle of blood a few yards from the panel. Jake noticed that the bloodstains on the ground continued all the way towards the forest. He shone his light on the ground where the body used to be, and traced the blood-red streak till it disappeared in the darkness of the trees.
That thing dragged the body into the woods.
Yeah, but why?
I don't know, maybe to eat it?
Maybe. I don't know. But why leave it here first? Take it away later. Jake froze after his light beam fell on something he didn't see before. He gasped, and Jenna threw a half-frightened, half-worried look at him.
What's that?
They went closer in order to see what made the man stare, so dumbfounded, at the ground. There, on the decades-old asphalt, near the bloody drag marks, a name was painted on the ground. Jake couldn't believe his eyes. The moment he saw the bloody name on the ground, he knew that tonight's events aren't random. They have something to do with him. When he was pondering the implications, Jenna interrupted him.
Clark? Who the hell is Clark?
He was my son.
Was?
He died.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, thanks. Let's get back to... Then a loud scream interrupted him. It was Clara. Couldn't have been anybody else.
Oh no, Clara!
Shouted Jenna, and ran back towards the front of the station. Jake followed. A stream was light, illuminating the driveway from inside. It looked like somebody was searching for something.
Mommy?
It's all right, honey. I'm here. What happened?
A monster wanted to take me. Curtis chased it away. Hey, y'all need to get inside.
They followed the clerk's instructions and hurried in. He was trembling from head to toe. His chest was heaving, flashlight in his right hand was shaking.
What happened?
He said she wanted some candy, so I let her search for candy. She wandered away, then I heard the scream, so I ran to her. She was by the big glass wall in the front. I pointed the light to her, then I saw the thing we were talking about behind her. Jenna held her hands to her chest like she was having a heart attack. She felt relieved because Clara was still alive, but she also knew that her daughter's life had almost been ended. Alright, then what happened next?
It disappeared. It dissolved into thin air. I can't explain it.
I couldn't see much, but it was big, man.
The light made it go away like you've said before. Will the monster come back, Mommy? I don't know, honey. All I know is that we will not let it hurt you, all right?
The girl just nodded and buried her head into her mother's shirt. He didn't want to let her go. Jenna really wanted to protect her daughter. What kind of mother wouldn't? The problem was, he didn't know how. He had to rely on the two men who were as lost as she was. Yeah, doesn't like light. That's why he took out the breaker panel. And that's why it could scare the fat guy. His lights weren't working.
Yo, the fat dude said his lights were out when he passed the thing on the road. You passed it too, but your lights are working, right?
Yeah, I think so. When I passed the thing the first time, my lights flickered, my radio went nuts. It all returned to normal though, after I got further down the road. How come your lights were still working? I don't have the vaguest idea. Your lights were okay when you were on the road, right? Yes, but I came from the opposite direction. Okay. So, we don't know what the hell this thing is. So we better make sure that we are surrounded by light all the time. How many flashlights do we have? We have 4. One is mine, the other's yours, and we still have 2 extra. Jake took one of the lights and gave it to Jenna. He took it and looked in his eyes with compassion, but also some hope. Jake seemed to her like a man who could save her, Clara. Not that Curtis seemed less capable to her, but she saw something in Jake. She didn't know for sure what it was. Maybe she saw in his eyes that he wouldn't hesitate a second to save him. Hey Curtis, have you seen anything unusual here lately? Anything which might explain all this? Yo, look, I'm working here for a month or so. Not sure as hell I ain't seen anything crazy going on. It round here and get weird until your ass showed up last night. Jake lowered his head. He was thinking. Maybe these events are truly tied to him somehow. But he couldn't understand how. I don't know, Curtis. Let's just get through the night, okay? Let's do it, man. Hopefully our batteries are gonna last. Aren't you selling flashlights here? Jenna asked, perplexed. No, ma'am. This was the same question I asked the boss when I'm coming here to work. He said that he plans to sell them in the future, but not yet. Business strategies, you know. Or lack of them. Shit, Jake exclaimed after their flashlights went out. Darkness enveloped them, and they felt icy fingers crawling up their backs. Clara hugged her mother more tightly. The 2 men tried desperate moves to restart the lights, but it was futile. Just when they thought it was all over, they heard sirens. Soon, a police cruiser turned onto the driveway with its blue and red lights whirling around. People inside the station died in relief. Finally, they had been rescued, and the ordeal was over. At least, this is what they thought. Better stated, this is what they all wanted to be true. The car didn't get too close because its siren and lights went dead in an instant. The driver tried to start the engine a few more times, but was unsuccessful. He also tried the radio, but it was dead. Jake opened the front door and was heading out to meet the police officers, but then halted in his tracks. To his right, between the tall bushes, he saw something moving. At first, he thought it was something in the wind. But no, it had an abnormal form. A tall, dark shape emerged onto the driveway. It had no visible features, only an outline. Otherwise, it was complete blackness. Outside was dark, but the visibility was still acceptable because the sky wasn't clouded. The faint moonlight somewhat illuminated the surroundings. Other than that, there was nothing else. No lights were working, but the sheer blackness of the creature was still obvious. It looked tall, about 8 or 9 feet, and had wings. They resembled the wings of a bat, only much larger, and they were only retracted. The creature also had 2 horns, jutting forward from its forehead, which then curled upwards. They couldn't see any facial features. Its hands were long and ended in thin fingers, pointy claws. The creature's legs were like that of a bird or a bat. Digitigrade, but with long fingers and claws. The only feature which stood out, the blackness, were the eyes. Brown and red, positioned in front of the face like those of humans. They were looking straight at the cruiser. Jake told the others to stay inside and began signaling the officers to watch out. He was waving both his hands frantically, shouting. He knew that this was his most idiotic thing he could do, but didn't want to have more people on his conscience. His wife and son were enough for him. Watch out! Watch out! To your left! The creature was already marching towards the car. Those inside surely noticed Jake signaling and approached the menace, because both front doors were opened with force. The driver couldn't get out because as soon as the door opened, the black thing made a tremendous leap and landed beside the car. This was when Jenna took her daughter and rushed to the back of the station. He didn't want her to witness anything of what was going to happen. What the fuck? Came the panicked shout from the police officer as the creature grabbed the door and ripped it off like it was nothing. The passenger side female officer jumped out and fell on her butt while screaming in terror. Her colleague, the driver, managed to somehow pull out his sidearm and began firing. Didn't matter. The thing was not even flinching as the bullets went right through it. Jake assumed that the shots could have been off target because of the distance between the shooter and the monster was only about 6 feet. Jake was standing there, transfixed, as the black thing with raging red eyes got hold of the police officer and yanked him out of the car. And then, a terrorizing roar spread its wings. It was one hell of a sight. The creature's wingspan was at least 10 yards, maybe even more. The police officer was alive and screaming, but he couldn't do much against the winged darkness. It jumped in the air, then, with a mighty flap of its wings, it got even higher. Then, each consecutive flap, got further and further till it disappeared in the night sky with its prey. Come here. Hey, officer. Jake was trying to get the attention of the policewoman who was still lying on the ground. She looked at him, and Jake saw the fear in her eyes. Maybe she's in shock, thought Jake. He was right. The officer's look was lost and confused. Her eyes showed panic. Jake extended his arm, and only after calling to her a few times did she wake up from her stupor. Hey, come with me. Not safe here. All right. He helped her get inside the station. And when Jake opened the front door, a beam of light hit his face. What's that? Oh, sorry. Looks like the flashlights are working again. What the hell is that thing, man? I can't believe this shit. Yeah, me either. But I don't know what it is. Looks like a bat straight out of hell. Are we going to survive this night? Jenna asked as she glanced at Jake. He only sighed. He didn't have an answer for that. After witnessing the formidable abilities of whatever the winged thing was, he wasn't sure at all if they survived. Deep in his guts, he felt that they can't fight this thing, and neither can they run away. Jake put these thoughts aside and wanted to do something. The sight of the crying little girl and the look on her mother's face broke his heart. Look, we have to do something, man. I know, Curtis. Thinking. Look, all we know is that its weakness is light, and it can interfere with electronics. Yo, that's right. Problem is that we need electronics to have lights. I sure ain't starting no campfire here. Okay, but what about the generator? Don't you have some kind of backup generator for emergencies? I don't know. As I said, I've been working here for a month. They don't show me much when I started. There is a generator, said the policewoman. The others just looked at her without saying a word, like she was some kind of alien. They almost forgot she even existed. She was young, close to 30, but not yet there. Her long blonde hair was tied up in a ponytail, and her otherwise harmonious face were now contorted under the pressure of fear and shock. She was sitting on the floor with her back to the counter, hands on her knees and head down. Sorry, ma'am. Are you sure? Yes, my name is Sarah. My brother used to work here. He had told me that he had to use the generator once because of a power outage. And do you know where it might be? Because I ain't see it around here. Somewhere in the back. I don't know. Might be in the equipment room. Go check. Alright, I'm gonna go check it out. Alright, I'll come with you, Curtis. Can you, take care of the girls? Yes, of course. I think I'm okay now. Just go. The two men rushed out, lighting their way with flashlights. Curtis was leading Jake to the back where they had found the body of the fat guy. The toilets were here, and also a small room for different tools and equipment. Curtis fumbled a little with the key, but soon the door opened, and they were greeted by a dirty and cluttered rectangular room. The smell of dust and gasoline hit their nose right away.
All right, let's see what we have here.
As Curtis and Jake began searching. After a few minutes, they found it. It was a small, portable generator. It worked on gasoline, and it wasn't the thing they were hoping to find, but it was better than nothing.
Look, I have to find some gas to fill this baby up, but we'll see if it's working or not.
I really hope it's gonna work.
Yeah, Jake, we'll see about that. Look at this, man. A searchlight. We could use this baby.
Yeah, damn right, said Jake, and inspected the object, which was larger than the flashlight and had a long cable attached to it. Their flashlights flickered wildly, switched off. 3 screams erupted from the front, and the lights switched back on. They both got startled by the sounds, and Curtis darted for the door with a panther's agility. "No," said Jake. "We'll need light as soon as possible."
All right, man, go.
Curtis replied, and his hands were already shaking. Jake ran to the front to see what had happened. When he reached the entrance and looked to the glass wall, he almost screamed himself. The upper torso of a man was crawling towards him, fixed eyes on Jake. Sarah was standing in the doorway without a clue about what he should do. Jenna was inside. She was cradling her daughter, so she doesn't see horrible events. The mangled body was inching towards Jake, and he didn't have a clue what to do. He recognized him by the uniform. He was the taken police officer, more correctly, the remaining half of him. His first thought was that he should help the man, but something told him that this shouldn't be happening. Not normal for a man to crawl who knows how much after he's ripped in two. The shock and blood loss must be extreme in cases. He remembered an event which he witnessed as younger. It taught him for life that he should not play the speed limits. Years ago, a young man was racing like crazy in his new motorbike. Parents just bought him the bike because it was his birthday. The guy lost control of the bike, side of a car, and flew sideways straight to a pole. His body cut in 2 pieces. Poor bastard was still alive for a few seconds because of the adrenaline. He tried to crawl to his lower body, somehow put it back. The paramedics lifted him up. All his insides had fallen onto the ground. Jake saw his eyes was crawling to gather up his guts. It didn't look like the eyes of this man. These were evil, resolute. His suspicions became reality. The crawling torso spoke in an almost feminine voice. Why did you let us die? Jake backed up a few steps with his mouth hanging open. He couldn't believe the voice he was hearing. It's your fault, Jake. It's all your fault. Jake kept looking at the corpse, then to Sarah, who was still standing in the doorway. Her face showed bewilderment, right? He looked at Jake for answers, because she knew that he had some. At least, this was she concluded, when looking at his face, which betrayed many feelings. Hey, come inside. Jake couldn't say a word. Old feelings rushed back to him like a torrent. The floodgates had been opened. That which was just slowly flowing through recently healed cracks came down on him again, bathing him in a shower of sorrow. He crashed to the ground and hid his face in his hands. Sarah hurried to him, bent down to the grieving man, put her hand over his shoulder. Come on, don't do this. We need you. I killed them. You didn't kill anybody. Now come inside, will you? The man woke up from his stupor, got up. Sarah led him back inside the station. His legs were barely obeying him. His mind was in some other place, a dark place. After Sarah brought Jake back inside, Sarah and Jenna looked at him questioningly. What was that? How could that man still be alive? I don't know. He wasn't. What do you mean? He couldn't have been alive. It was just a sick game played by us, by that wingman thing. But what about the voice? That voice was not him, I tell you. But whose voice was it? Tell me that voice has something to do. Yes, it has. It was my wife's voice. Almost. Your wife? Yes. She died 4 years ago, along with my son, Clark. Oh. Really sorry to hear that. But I don't understand what that's got to do with what's happening tonight. I don't either, believe me. So, what's the story? Well, the fucked up story is I was married and had a son. He was 10 years old. He looked very much like your daughter, Clara. What happened to him? Asked Clara. Well, our relationship wasn't that good, you know. So, I sought some fun elsewhere. You know what I mean? Yeah, you cheated on her. Yes, that's right. And there's not a single fucking day on this earth when I don't regret doing that. You found out eventually. We had those unavoidable arguments. Then she filed for divorce. Got divorced, got custody, but I got to see my son at least. What happened then? One night, they went to their grandmother's. It was a night like this. They were driving on an abandoned country road. She was tired, found herself face to face with a truck. Couldn't avoid it. My God, I'm sorry, said Sarah. Yeah, me too. Every damn day. The weird thing is that Clark found himself almost all his head missing, several yards away in the forest. Some wild animal dragged him from the wreck. It's like the body of the first victim. Was there a first victim? Asked Sarah. Yes, replied Jenna. In the back. And what about the next one? When the emergency services found my wife, only her upper half was left in one piece. The engine was pushed forward, and it crushed everything from her waist down. Ah, I see now. You think that these events have something to do with that? Definitely. I don't know how, but they are related. If I hadn't cheated on her, they could still be alive. Look, it wasn't your fault, said Sarah. Yeah, cheating on her wasn't an agreeable thing, but their death wasn't your fault. Yeah, my mind keeps telling me that. But what is burning in here, telling me otherwise. Hey, where's Curtis? Oh, damn it. I left him in the back. Alright, look, stay here. When he reached the equipment room, he saw that the door is ajar, but there was no sign of Curtis. The generator and the reflector had been pulled into the doorway. It looked like he was trying to get it to the front, but then something happened. Damn it. Damn it, damn it, Jake shouted, and he began searching the surroundings for Curtis. His heart was racing. He didn't want to lose Curtis. In fact, he didn't want to lose anybody. He wanted to make sure that they all survive. But it seemed that it is not a plausible task. Jake kept calling for Curtis, but no answer came. Only the eerie sounds of the night greeted him. Crickets were chirping endlessly in the forest, and from deep within the woods, owl hooted. A harbinger of death, he thought briefly. Is this his destiny? One minor mistake, and then only pain and suffering? He didn't deserve this, he thought. Not this much, at least. Others shouldn't pay with their lives just because he was stupid once. Having had no success in finding Curtis, he took the generator and the searchlight, took them to the front. When he reached the front door, the woman already knew that Curtis was gone. Did you find him? No, there wasn't a single sign of him. Oh no. Are we going to die one by one? Mommy, I don't want to die. I'm sorry, honey. I didn't mean it. Mommy's just scared, that's all. We'll figure something out soon and we'll go home, alright? We really have to do something, said Sarah, because this thing is going to kill us all. I don't want to scare anybody, but we have to get out of here. I agree, Sarah, but what the hell can we do? We don't know where that thing is. We don't know how we can stop it. Alright, look, let's start the generator so we have some light. And we wait until morning. I have no better idea. Alright, I'll try to start it. He took the generator further inside and switched it on. It was working fine. He then connected the searchlight to the generator. After switching it on, bright light filled the place. It was much more powerful than their flashlights. The steady roaring of this generator's sound was a welcoming one. Ah, great. It's working, exclaimed Jenna. Yeah, let's hope the gas is gonna last. Alright, Sarah, so now what? Jake then said, now we wait. We'll have a few more hours till sunrise. They all gathered close to one another and waited. The light was comforting. Jake checked from time to time the generator to see the level of gasoline. The machine was eating up the gas at a steady state, but it seemed that it will last till sunrise. For an hour or so, nothing happened. Clara was sleeping in her mother's arms. Jenna was sleeping too. Sarah and Jake were awake. They sipped from the bottle from time to time. Not too much though, so they won't get drunk. The two of them talking in a low voice about many things. After some uneasy shuffling, Clara woke up and began waking up her mother. Mommy, need to pee. Yeah, all right. I need to pee too. Hey, you two shouldn't go alone, said Sarah. Don't worry, I'll go with them. Look, I'm coming too. I also have to use the bathroom, and it's better if we all go together. Damn whiskey. And drink on the job. Alright, let's try to make it quick. Take the flashlights with us. At least we'll know when it comes. They took the flashlights, switched them on. They were working fine. The trip to the back to the station was uneventful. After all of them finished what they had to do, Jake started leading them back inside. Then the light from inside went out, and they heard a few clattering sounds. The flashlights flickered again. Sign of something bad happening. Something not natural. Sarah unholstered her sidearm, and Jake could hear sighing deeply. They were standing at the corner of the building. What do we do now? Asked Sarah. I don't want to die, Mommy. Don't worry, honey. I'm here. Alright, let's check, said Jake. A winged creature couldn't have done it. It hates the light. They all inched their way around the corner. The entrance was only a few feet away. After a brief glance inside, They saw that there was nothing moving. Only suspicious thing was the light was not working. Sarah opened the door, then she went inside. Jake followed, and after him, Jenna and Clara. They waited here for some seconds and listened. Nothing moved. Everything was still. Jake inched towards the generator, which lay broken on the floor. It looked like something took a sledgehammer to it and broke it into pieces. Gasoline was lying on the ground in a great pool. "Who's there?" shouted Sarah. "What?" "Something moved there." "Wait," said Jake. A faint rustling came from the back, but they couldn't see anything because of the overwhelming darkness. The smell of spilled gasoline was heavy in the air. They had to be careful not to do something stupid, ignite it accidentally. Sarah and Jake took careful steps towards the back. This was when they heard the flapping of heavy wings from outside. Both of them turned towards a glass wall, but couldn't see a thing. They were between shelves anyway, and it was dark too. The flapping came once again from the outside. Sarah was shaking, and the gun in her hands was rattling as her hands trembled. Jenna and Clara moved back from the front wall. The next moment, Jake heard Sarah scream. He turned and saw her being grabbed by something. She screamed again as a black figure bit into her neck. Jake jumped to help her. That was when he saw that the black figure was Curtis. Or was he? He looked up and growled. Blood was gushing from Sarah's neck. It bit through the jugular. Jake knew in an instant what that had meant. He only had about half a minute to live. Jake grabbed the hand which was around Sarah's neck and then punched Curtis in the face. Curtis drew back, loosened his grip. Sarah slid out. With her remaining strength, turned and fired 2 times. The bullets hit their target in the chest, and Curtis tumbled back. He fell, hitting a shelf with his back, and fell on his butt. There was no blood coming from the wounds. You're all gonna die. Curtis, man, what's wrong with you? But Jake knew he wasn't talking to Curtis. You let me die, just like you let the police officer die. Just like you let the fat man die. Just like you let... Shut up. This is what you're telling your demons when they won't be silenced? Your demons have come alive, Jake. They will not stop till you are dead. Don't you see? Everything is your fault. Do everybody a favor and just fucking die, you pathetic shit. Curtis's head lolled, and he didn't move anywhere. Jake was looking at him, stunned. The bad part was that He believed Curtis. Jake now saw clearly what these events meant. He looked at Sarah, who was on the ground, clutching at the wound on her neck. Quickly tore off his piece of shirt, folded it up, and pressed it on her wound. He was determined not to let Sarah die. He didn't deserve it. The only one who deserved to die was him. Jenna came to the side. Clara stood a few feet behind them. Oh my God, you going to make it? I don't know. What happened to Curtis? Why did he attack Sarah? I don't know. Somehow that creature can control people after they die. I can't believe this. Me neither. But I have to end it. Sarah gasped, and she grabbed Jake by the sleeve of his jacket. Save. I won't make it. Save them, please. No, you won't die. You can't die. It didn't matter. Sarah was already drifting away. Some seconds later, he didn't breathe anymore. The wound on her neck, too big, and the blood seeped out anyway. Jake was furious and grief-stricken. Is this all really his fault? How can that be? All this because of a past mistake? He took Sarah's sidearm from her lifeless hand and checked it. It was a revolver, and it still had 4 bullets in it. After checking her pockets, he found some more bullets and replaced the 2 missing. He looked at Jenna, then to her daughter. These 2 will make it out alive. He would do everything in his power to save him. Jake, what are you gonna do? Going to end it. Gasoline, which had flown out of the generator, gave him an idea. He went to one of the shelves, grabbed some duct tape. Jake also searched for some matches, soon found them. They were cheap, but the stock was plentiful. He took one of the hoses and began sprinkling gasoline all over the place, except the entrance. Then he taped the lever to the handle so the gas could flow without him holding the hose. He threw the thing to the ground, then went to Jenna. Look, that thing will come eventually. I think it wants to finish what it started. And what are you gonna do? I prepared a surprise for it. Look, when it comes, you 2 run as fast as you can. And what about you? Look, that thing won't stop until I'm dead. I have to face it before it hurts you or your daughter. Even if I kill myself, I can't be sure that I won't transform into a monster like Curtis did. I have to make sure that everything is gone. All right. Look, I wish I had a choice, but it seems like the only one. Look, get your daughter and be ready. But where should we run? Away from the monster. If you have to run through the woods, do it. Don't hesitate. The flapping of wings came again. Jake braced himself near the pumps and readied the gun along with the matches. The creature came down top of the building. It let out a terrifying screech. Then he could hear its steps along the roof. All right, girls, be ready. They just nodded and waited beside the front door. The creature was taking its time. The steps sounded carefully, calculated. Jake's heart was beating. It wanted to jump out of his chest. The girls were terrified, but eager to get the hell out of there. The creature jumped down from the building beside the girls. They both screamed and ran. But when the creature wanted to dart after them, Jake pointed a pistol at it and began firing. Hey, here I am. Come on, come and take me, you ugly bastard. The monster turned and stared at Jake with its red eyes. This was when Jake really understood what had happened. Not only had it had something to do with him, it was him. All the grief and pain he had felt since the death of his wife and his son came to life somehow. The monster had wanted him here. This is why the lights were still working when he had arrived. It was playing with Jake. It was feeding on his guilt. Jake didn't understand how this was possible, but it had happened, and it killed more people. He fired more shots, but they didn't hurt the monster. He got closer and closer. Jake saved the last bullet for himself and glanced behind them. Jenna and Clara had already run away. Monster closed in. Jake took out the matches and lit one. You're coming to hell with me. And when it got closer, he threw the match at its feet. The gas lit up with an infernal roar. The creature cried in pain as the light hit and fire hurt it. When the fire reached Jake's legs and began engulfing him, he pointed the pistol to his head and pulled the trigger. A few seconds later, Jenna and Clara saw from the road as the underground gasoline containers exploded in a fiery blaze of light and heat. The cries of the creature reached their ears too. They saw the creature's body, blazing, body rise from the flames and dissolve in a few seconds into thin air. Yo, what is up, everybody? Let's go back again. Another short horror story for you guys, written by Miss Unicorn 257. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Babysitting. A young girl was babysitting some children late one night. Once she put the children to bed, she went to watch TV. In the middle of the show, the phone rang. When she picked up the phone, all she heard was laughing from the other end of the phone. She listened for a minute and then hung up. After a few minutes, the phone rang again. This time, when she picked it up, there was a male voice that answered and said, "Have you checked on the children?" The girl asked who he was, and in reply, he laughed, then hung up. She was scared and called the police. When the police showed up, they said it was a prank call, to call back if it happens again. She got another call from the man asking again if he checked on the children. She hung up, and the police told her that she should get out of the house immediately. The calls were coming from the upstairs extension where he already murdered the children. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? Sir, let's go back again. Another short horror story written by Miss Unicorn 257. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Story 2. Snow Day. It was a lovely night with at least a foot of snow on the ground. I was watching the news and drinking some hot chocolate. I got up to put my empty mug in the sink when I noticed a guy outside. He was smiling, but he had like this twisted grin that will forever haunt me. It dawned on me when I noticed the knife in his left hand. I grabbed the phone and dialed the police. After that, I looked at him. He got much closer. He started walking towards my door and stopped when he was about a foot or so from the door. But that's when I noticed something. There wasn't any footprints in the snow. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again with some more Christmas horror stories for you guys. These will be written by Miss Unicorn 257. So remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, subscribe. Story 1. The Painting. My family and I were visiting my grandma for the weekend, and as the sun was going down, I was getting more tired from lack of sleep because of overworking. My grandma said I could sleep in the basement guest room. However, my younger brother was already sleeping down there, so I had to be quiet as not to wake him. So I went into the room and decided not to turn on the light and to just crawl into the bed. I was about to fall asleep, so I realized an odd painting I've never noticed before. It was of an ugly old man who looked like he hasn't taken a shower in a while. I tried to ignore it, as it was just a weird painting and I'm trying to sleep. I never had worse sleep in my life. I felt like something or someone was watching me. When I woke up, I looked at the painting to get a clear look at it. However, it was a window. All I saw was the clear and sunny morning. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again. Another horror story for you guys, written by Miss Unicorn 257. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. the street. When I stepped outside the train station, it was raining heavily. I thankfully grabbed my umbrella before I left. I opened it and started walking down the rather busy street. I don't know why, the atmosphere felt unpleasant. Something was wrong, strange. Every person I walked by didn't have an umbrella over them. Everyone was just silent and looked grim. They walked on, all facing the same direction. Suddenly, a taxi stopped by, and the driver motioned for me to come over to him. I gestured that I didn't need a ride. The taxi driver said, "Come on, get in." I gave in and walked towards the taxi. Besides, I wanted to get out of this unpleasant atmosphere. After about a minute or so of driving, the driver looked at me, pale-faced, and said, When I saw you walking down the street, you looked like you were trying to avoid bumping into people on an empty street. So I thought I should ask if you needed help." Now, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? Let's go back again. Another short horror story written by Miss Unicorn 257. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Ariel. When my first daughter was around 5 years old, she was obsessed with The Little Mermaid. She would literally watch it almost every day. We would dress up as Ariel every Halloween, and it brought joy to my heart, seeing her love something so much. One day, I found out that I was having another child. We later found out that it was a girl. Lily, our daughter, was thrilled to have a little sister, and so we were. A year goes by, and we're a happy family of 4. We have our 2 girls, Lily and little Ariel. Lily and Ariel were practically best friends, never apart. A little later, I heard running water coming from the bathroom, thinking it was Lily starting a bath. I didn't mind it too much, as she was old enough to have one by herself. So, I continued to watch TV until I got up to make sure Lily was doing okay. I opened the door to see Ariel's face down in the water and Lily saying, "Go, Ariel, go. Find your Prince Charming." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again. Another short horror story written by Miss Unicorn 257. Remember to use the link in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Pretending to sleep doesn't work. A young boy was peacefully sleeping in his bed one night. He suddenly hears footsteps outside his door. He opened his eyes slightly to see what is happening. His door then opens quietly to reveal a murder carrying his dead parents. This figure silently puts the corpses on the chair in his room and writes something in blood on the wall. The thing proceeds to hide under the children's bed. The child can't make out what the writing on the wall was and knows that the thing is under his bed. He pretends to sleep through all of this, but he just lays still, hearing the breathing under his bed. After an hour passes, his eyes get more adjusted to the darkness. He tries to read what is on the wall, but it is hard to make out. Then he gasps when he realizes what it says. I know you're awake. Then he feels something shift from under his bed. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again with another short horror story written by Miss Unicorn 257. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. No hands, no talking. When I was little, I remember having no say in things. I was never allowed to say anything, without permission at least. For example, if I wanted to say something, I would simply raise my hand like I did in grade school. One night at dinner, my sister was talking about her day, and my parents were talking with her. I wanted to say something, so I started to talk. Then I realized my mistake. My parents scolded me. They told me, no hands, no talking. I was sent to bed early. I was lying in bed when I heard my parents go into their room. I went to the kitchen, grabbed the biggest knife my little 12-year-old hands could grab. I ran back to my room and screamed for my mom to come in, that I was scared. After about 2 seconds of waiting, she finally came in. Before she could say anything, I ran at her. I grabbed her head and slammed it against my wall. She was definitely out. Or so I hoped. I quickly grabbed her hands and did what she always told me. Extra, extra, read all about it. A family of 4 were found dead, except for one little girl who wasn't found. The family had no hands. They looked like they were chewed off. They were all stabbed multiple times in the living room. There was no hands, no talking, in the living room written blood. We hope to find the murder and the little girl. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story.
Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again with another short horror story for you guys. This one is titled Christmas Death Bell Rock, written by Holly Mork 16. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. December 24th, 1998, New York City. Music blasted, people dancing, people drinking, and people enjoying themselves, all celebrating the great event of Christmas, and later, a Happy New Year's. As people danced and celebrated the great party, the temperature became chilled and cool, and suddenly it went black and dark. Nothing was lit. Suddenly, projections started getting displayed on the walls of the building. A person popped up. They started talking about how they invited these people, and they were chosen, not by luck. All the costumes that they were wearing were given out when they arrived. A couple of minutes went by, and everyone was stuck to the walls. No one was staring. Suddenly, a countdown from 30 seconds began. All doors are locked, and it's about to get very messy and melty for everyone, especially the snowman. The person behind the screen declared, and it reached one, but nothing happened. All silent, and nothing happened at all. People just looked around and saw nothing happening. Suddenly, a woman screamed, "Oh my God, my face, it's burning." Ah! She fell on the floor. Red liquid poured from her mask. A man rushed over, pulled the mask off her face, and it was just burnt, half melted away. Skin was in like a melty chocolate state. It all started pouring out onto the floor. Everyone in snowman costumes ripped off their masks, but no one could. Yes, you saw one of the consequences. How about you all get the same fate? Then they all started falling. Everyone in snowman costumes started to fall, spilling blood from the masks. Everything that was white turned a dark red. So, my elves, first job, clean all these bodies off right now. If any of you try to escape or run, well, you have seen what can happen, but there's even worse. They all rushed, picking up their dead friends' lifeless bodies, dripping out blood each lift. People throwing up, it built up in their masks, and they couldn't even release it. This causing people to build up and build up sick inside of them. One elf dropped to the floor, the mask released, and tons of volume of sick rushed out, mixed with blood. All the elves kept running around after all was clean, and the stranger just laughed and laughed. Merry fucking Christmas. Hopefully you enjoyed the Christmas Death Bell Rock. Ho, 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 ho. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? Sarasco back again with another short horror Christmas story written by Ollie Morg 16. This one is titled Always Believe in the Man in Red. For this story, we'll be traveling to Bath, UK. Here is a family and a son that is called Noel, the only believer in his whole family tree. December 24th, 1998. With Noel, he was a true, dedicated believer in Christmas and Santa, the man in red. Compared to the rest of his family, they all hated the idea of Christmas and especially Santa. They disposed the whole idea in their house and really hated Noel for even liking Christmas in the slightest bit. The special thing about Noel is that he got adopted at the age of 2 by the Smith family, as they didn't have a son, only 3 daughters. And they didn't want to take another chance at having 4 daughters. This leading to a very mixed relationship between Noel and the rest of the family. The Smith family weren't at all rich. Paying for four children was not an easy task. Noel always only asks for Christmas is for a peaceful and very lovely Christmas with his family. All Noel wants is to be loved fully and have a great and lovely relationship with the Smith family. Never cared for the latest phone nor the latest toys, only to be loved by a family. So, once again, Noel wishes and wishes for a loving family that I could be trapped with anything. A family that will love me and will always be together, trapped as if in a snow globe. Noel always wanted this family, but sadly, the Smith family never came to be that family he always dreamed about. Oi, Noel, get down here. It's dinner time, and if you don't come down here, you won't get nothing. Okay, Mr. Smith, coming right down. Good. And guess what? We have something special to show you. Noel wondered, what could this special thing be? He never had anything good, so Noel rushed down the stairs to see what the special item was. So, as we know, you love Christmas, we actually thought to give this tradition a try. So, we have a Christmas dinner made, Mrs. Smith said. Oh, really? Oh gosh, thank you. I don't know what to say. Nah, I'm just kidding, Noel. Who do you think we are? We are retarded. We don't believe in that silly tradition, and we don't want to make our adopted son happy. So sit and stop believing in that special family you want us to be. We aren't changing. You won't be anything to anyone, Noel. What a disappointment. Mr. Smith just laughed when spitting out beer from his revolting mouth. His teeth yellow, half fallen out, rest holes with decay and brown substance everywhere inside. What? Why are you all... What? Say it, boy. Say what you were going to say. What happened? You don't have any balls? You're all mean. And as I heard you say to the neighbor, you're all dickheads. Mr. Smith stared right into Noel's eyes, looked at Mrs. Smith. She nodded her head. Mr. Smith stood up, unclipped his belt, and headed towards Noel. Come here now. If you run, it will be worse. However, Noel knew he could make it to the bathroom upstairs and lock himself away. So, he ran as fast as he could, and Mr. Smith charged after him. Noel was so close to the top, however slipped on the third step to the top. He froze, turned, and saw Mr. Smith right behind him. Mr. Smith lifted his hand, battering Noel. Multiple hits, multiple pains rushed Noel's body. All while the other Smith family just listened to the beating Noel was taking, hearing him scream, crying, and dying from the inside. Mr. Smith, heavy breathing, not stopping after 10 hits. Rage came rushing over him, and the last hit did Noel bad. hit him right across the face, causing what feels like a sharp blade rip across his face. Tears rushed into the cuts, stinging. Don't you ever call my family dickheads. If you don't like us, leave. I don't know why we wanted a son, especially one like you. Noel, stunned by the event his body took, hearing all the Smith family laughing and cheering that Noel isn't with them, Noel rushed into his room and wished, I wish the Smith family will leave me alone. I wish I was alone. I want them to die. But, Santa, you aren't real, as anything I wish for doesn't come true. I don't believe. I don't believe, I don't believe, I don't believe. Far, far away, Noel's words rushed into his ears. Their eyes widened, heavy breathing. Friends, we have a non-believer. Time for fun. Laughter filled the darkness of the voices in the room. Laughter just filled and filled. Bells rang, springs twisted. Flight to Bath, UK has begun. In Bath, Noel was looking at the scars, cuts, and bruises that infected his body as if a virus. One big cut on his left side of his body, near the ribs, was deep, and blood flowed out, mixing into his t-shirt. Noel just went to bed to get the day finished and to try and think of anything but Christmas or the family he always wanted. Noel fell asleep around 18:59. 11:32. Noel's eyes opened in milliseconds as his face pointed towards the ceiling from the loud bang. The noises continued above him. What the hell? There's no rooms above me. As the noise headed towards where his head is, it stopped. He realized that the house chimney was right next to his bed. He put his ear next to the wall. Suddenly, he could hear heavy breathing and the scraping of chains against the brick. Hello, Noel. I know you can hear me. Noel knew the Smith family always stayed up until midnight, so he decided to leave them. At least that's what he wished he could have done. However, Noel was very respectful and a caring person. Even though the pain the Smith family had put him through, they are still people. So he ran down the stairs, rushed into the lounge where the Smith family are and the chimney is. Guys, there's something in the chimney, believe me, and I'm not coming in by the fire. Oh, really, Noel? Another one of your stupid, spirited Christmas speeches? No, I'm serious, there really is. All the Smith family stood up and stared at him, all backs towards the fire. With no one noticing, the flame died down. The flames decreased to nothing, and then chains started to lower hooves climbing down. Noelle then looked past the family, eyes widened as if almost popping out. "Look, look." Mr. Smith turned around. A figure, around 6'8" in height, face covered by fur, eyes glowing red, nose black with red spots. The mouth half open, its blue-colored tongue hanging out. The clothes, as if really old and ripped up, looked like a Santa outfit, almost revealing more fur, and its legs were covered by third-degree burns. All the Fifth Smith family shouted. The figure reached into its pocket, revealing a candy cane. "Is that it?" Mr. Smith asked. Right then and there, the figure stabbed right in the middle of his face, blood splattering out. The floor became a murder house. He turned to the family, blood steaming out of his head. He fell to the floor, and the sound of the candy cane digging deeper into his face. The figure then turned Mr. Smith around, ripped the candy cane right out of his head, and all you could see was blood spouting and brain tissue everywhere. The figure just stood, laughing at him. Then it pointed to Miss Smith. Her movement was taking steps back. Ah! Suddenly, a spider fell right onto her head. But the mouth was weird, it just kept opening. But it bit right on her head, causing such a deafening scream, and Mrs. Smith tried to remove the spider from her head, but had no success at all. But as she did remove the spider from her hair came right out of its roots, blood pouring out of her head, rolling down the sides of her face, her eyes crying blood. The spider eating away her hair, which revealed to have some skin attached to it. Miss Smith tried to touch the back of her head, and a massive cut out of her skin ripped off. She fell right into Mr. The rest of the family, all girls, were chased into the kitchen, surrounded by gingerbread men. Molly slipped and landed on her head, causing her to be knocked out. As for the other two, one was tied up, getting lifted into the oven, which was set to max temperature. Her skin began to melt, started bubbling and turning black. Eventually, her skin was ripped and torn by the heat, destroying the cells. The second sister, surrounded by gingerbread men, had her back against a wall. She then tried to jump over them, which she did make. However, she slipped when she landed and split her head on the side of the kitchen worktop, causing her head and spine bone to get completely twisted. Immediate death. Molly, though, had a much worse death. She woke up, tied up, lifted her head, and saw gingerbread on top of her. And these guys were like 20 inches. She could feel them touching her. A couple of them grabbed the shorts she was wearing and started to pull them to her knees, then headed towards her privates. Ripped her pants, started forcing their way up, causing splits, blood forming. Molly was screaming of pain. There were around 5 of them, all climbing into oblivion. Her face was trying to fight them back, but couldn't. All of them made it into her. Her chest started to pop up and down, screaming at the top of her lungs, "They are!" And suddenly, the gingerbread ripped straight through her chest, her lungs, but you can still see her heart beating, and all the blood came rushing out. The revolt of the scene was as if World War III was in one room. Then all 5 gingerbread men reappeared, covered in guts and blood, laughing in horrific ways. "Guess your cherry got popped," one of the gingerbread men shouted. And then the house fell silent. Noel, when his adopted sisters ran, he too ran up the stairs, but he went into the bathroom and closed his eyes, wishing it would all end. Wishing he could go back to his old adopted family, as he actually did have a family. Noel just sat in silence, crying to himself. Chains started to come closer and closer. As it sounded like they were right outside the bathroom door, they all stopped. Every little sound stopped. Was it all over? Noel had his eyes shut. He opened them. Hello. Suddenly, Noel was face to face with the figure. Noel could smell everything off this creature. What are you? What am I? I am the person you called here. You are the reason I am here. I am Krampus, and you stopped believing in the man in red. This is your actions. Noel crying. Krampus put his goat hoof to wipe it away. He grabbed Noel by the arm and pulled him downstairs. Every creature, toy was down there cheering Krampus. Krampus threw Noel in the chimney, waved goodbye, and walked to a table, lit a match, and the gingerbread had cooking oil, and poured it right over Noel. Krampus throwing the match, landing right on Noel's nap, Noel rushed out, running around, screaming for help. He tripped over Mr. Smith's body. Krampus lifted him up again and threw him on the chimney again. Noel then rushed up the chimney, launching into the sky. He saw his whole city. He started to rush straight towards the earth as he realized gravity was starting to grow. Noel then hit the ground. Whoa! Noel then woke up in a very nice bed and a clean room. He walked downstairs, a family cheerful. All cheered Noel when he entered the room. Hey, we've been waiting for you to open your Christmas gifts. Here, open this one's first. As this is to claim to be the first one to be opened. Noel then stared at Mr. Smith. He was happy. So, Noel opened the gift. It was a bit of cloth, red and old, Noel turned the piece of cloth over, and it had a big K on it. His face dropped. Then he suddenly heard a tapping noise outside the house. Noel then rushed outside, and right there in front of him, Krampus was looking right at them. But he was massive compared to them, a giant. He lifted them up and put them right next to a piece of paper saying, Noel Smith, wish. Loving family that I could be trapped in anything with. A family that will love me and will always be together. Trapped as if in a snow globe. Noel saw and understood what has happened. He got his die-hard wish. He has everything he wished for. A perfect family trapped in a snow globe. Krampus lifted them up again, started tilting them forward. Noel hit the glass and saw a bin with multiple other snow globes. Here you go, Noel. Your wish has happened. And have a very Merry Christmas, and always, always believe in the man in red. The Smith snow globe fell straight into the pit of other abandoned snow globes. Krampus then waved and covered the pit to make it complete darkness. Noel then woke up, sweating. He looked outside and everything was there. No snow globe, nothing. He went downstairs and the Smith family, all unhappy and not believing in Christmas. Was it all a dream? Mr. Smith then asked Noel, "What do you want for breakfast, kiddo?" I'm not that hungry, but thank you." Noel actually felt happy. Not perfect, but actually happy. He looked around, and the family did start looking happy as well. He could finally get the happy, unhappy family he always wanted. Suddenly, it fell silent, and snow started to fall. He heard the tapping again, and the voice said, "Hello, Noel." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? Suresco back again. This time with some short Christmas horror stories for you guys, written by Ollie Morg 16. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them, like, comment, and subscribe. Story 1, The Mall That Ended It All. For this story, let's travel to Michigan, USA, where we will meet our main characters in this story, and we will find out the details of their journey that began on December 20th, 2015. The day was cool, snow falling, covering everything like a pen over paper. It was all white, no color, a monochrome of man-raised images. Chris and Jamie have been up for an hour, waiting for the time to go head off straight to the closest mall for a late Christmas shop. With Jamie, she loves Christmas, and every year when the year turns to December the 1st, the decorations and music all pop out and begin the countdown to the 25th of December. While Chris does like Christmas, but not as much or excited compared to Jamie, he loves Jamie's emotions and feelings about Christmas. He's beginning to love Christmas almost as much as her. The mall that they want to go to opens at 10 a.m. and it's called Briarwood Mall. As it is the best and the biggest they could shop at, plus it is the closest towards them. The time is 9:45. Hey, let's head off now, as we could be the first ones in the front line. Chris and Jamie headed off to the adventure to the mall. After many minutes, nearly hours in the mall, Jamie noticed a line leading to something. So she led Chris with her to see what the line was leading to. Jamie, like a child literally on Christmas, was so excited. It was a man dressed up as Santa. Oh, Chris, I need to have a photo with him. Okay, but I think it's a little bit creepy that a man is dressed up as Santa. They were only a couple spots away from Jamie's photo with Santa, when Chris noticed that the Santa guy was fully constrained on something. So Chris followed where his eyes were leading to. The guy was looking at his girlfriend, Jamie. I knew because I moved places with her, and his eyes glided across his face as a cheetah hunting his prey. I even moved in front of her. When we locked eyes, his face turned from almost pleasurable face to pure rage and anger. Chris blinked uncontrollably, but the Santa never did. Only made full eye contact. Hey, Chris, move out of the way. Santa's waiting for me, Jamie said, as Chris didn't notice that all that time the people in front had their turns already. Jamie walked very swiftly to the Santa guy. His face glowed each step she took towards him. Santa's smile widened, showing gross and greenish teeth that is almost supernatural-like. Chris, come on, take photos of me and Santa. So, each photo, Jamie looked straight at the camera, posing so lovely and beautiful. But Santa noticed, and Chris noticed, that Santa was never looking at the camera, but only at her. His nose moved up and down, producing a sniffing noise that somehow Jamie didn't notice at all. Alright, I think that's enough photos with Santa, Jamie. Don't you think? No, leave baby Jamie, Santa said. Pardon? How dare you call my girlfriend like that? Who do you think you are? You don't call people baby girl, especially when you aren't dating them. Like, plus, man, you work with kids, dude. I'm so sorry, mister. It's just, Jamie is so perfect and beautiful. She will be mine. Get away from her. I said get away from her now. Too late. She's already mine. Tonight at 11 p.m. She won't be yours anymore, Chris. Say goodbye. No, get away from her. Chris grabbed Jamie by her hand, pulled her away from Santa,
and Jamie reacted saying, "Chris, what the hell are you doing? You didn't take the last photo. What's wrong with you?" "Look, the Santa just told me everything about taking you away from me." "What are you talking about? The Santa guy was just telling you that you were lucky to have me. And that's when you just stood looking at him, almost having a daydream." Chris was reviewing everything that just happened. By then, the next person was having photos with the Santa guy, but still, he was watching Jamie, not even the kid having the photo with him. "See you later, you good girl." Alright, that's it. You better shut the fuck up right now before I hit that fake beard off your round head. Everyone in the radius of Chris and Jamie was staring at them. "Shut up, Chris. You're embarrassing me." Chris and Jamie were silent all the way back home, with a beeping sound being in the background. Do you want to talk about the mall or not?" "No, I don't know what was happening to me back there." Hours passed. They unpacked everything and almost had forgotten about everything that happened at the mall. Chris and Jamie watched multiple Christmas movies, Elf, and Die Hard. Chris looked outside the window and noticed that there was some sort of print on the window. He rushed towards it and closed the curtains with pure accuracy and speed. The curtains were closed in a matter of moments. 26 minutes passed. It was 11 p.m. and Chris and Jamie were in bed, almost asleep, when above them, Chris started and stared where he noticed the noise was coming from. Sounded like it was coming from right below them. Chris stood up and started to walk to the stairs to find out what the hell made the loud noises. As he started to silently go down the stairs, he could hear some sort of coughing. He peeked to the side to look in the lounge where the noise came from. A figure was standing right in the middle as he saw black dust covered the floor from the chimney. Chris froze. He needed to go back to Jamie. Chris headed back upstairs when he heard heavy footsteps coming closer and closer. Chris finally made it to the bedroom. Jamie, baby, don't panic at all, but there's someone in our house. We need to hide and call the cops. Okay, but I'm scared. Don't. We will be perfectly fine. We will hide together. You go in the closet first, and I will follow right behind you. Jamie comfortable, and now she started to calm down with every breath. She turned to face the closet door where Chris was standing. The most high-pitched and deathly scream ever produced yelled out his name, and Chris jumped and locked in place. He tried to twist as fast as he could, but he was face to face with a 6'2" man, eyes bloodshot, fully widened, heavy breathing, with anger raised inside of him. Mouth converted into a deadly angered movement. In his hand
a wooden bat that had red marks covered in the end. As Chris just noticed, he fell to the floor, creating a boom of sound of an earthquake. Black covered his eyes. Chris woke up seconds later, eyes bobbing up and down. A killer pain on the right side of his head. As he lifted it, he felt wetness. As he put his hand where it was moist, he looked at his covered, bloodied hand. Blood rushed down as he raised his hand, his fingernails invisible by the dark dripping blood liquid. Chris felt sick rushing up his throat, adding to his fully covered dark red hand. The blood and sick made an extra thick substance that was unbearable to stare or even smell. As the rotting of the sick and blood rushed to cover the wooden boards, "Chris, help! Please, help!" As Chris stood up, a sudden blood rush came over him, making nearly fall back into the pill of thick blood and sick. Eventually, Chris got his vision back and rushed downstairs. Nearly falling down the steps, every second he was wondering what is happening to Jamie. He made it to the lounge where the chimney is, and horror as the dim lights from outside were trying to go through the curtains. "Help! Chris, fucking help! Turn a light on!" Chris rushed and turned the light on. He stood staring at Jamie getting lifted up the chimney. Half her body is up the chimney, tar falling with every lift the man did. Jamie, blood all over her face, eyes full of tears, and bruises covering her skin. Chris rushed to grab her hand and pull her down. As he was under the chimney, looking at Jamie's pure horrified face, tears were hitting Chris's face, rushing into his cut, burning, and pain rushed to his face. Chris looked past Jamie's horrid face. The Santa was fully black, and all the white fur from the Santa's coat was now a dark red. No part of the suit was at all white. "Chris, let go. Let go. She isn't yours. She never was, Chris." Chris kept on pulling and pulling. Meanwhile, Santa was pulling and pulling, and he had much more strength compared to Chris. "Let go of me. My arm's going to get..." And Chris felt that Jamie's arm seemed to get much weaker. Chris then looked up at Jamie's arm, and it was floppy and moved with no control. Jamie had her arm pulled from the socket. It was loose and had zero control. Then Chris began to become weak. There was nothing he could do. His arm gave up. He saw, he watched, he stared as Jamie's body was pulled at lightning speed and hitting each side of the walls of the chimney, making crushing sounds as the arm dangles. They reached the very top. It was silent. Chris just kept staring straight up. All he could see was the Santa and his glowing red eyes looking straight down, and waved with the biggest grin spread across his face. Chris, go outside and say goodbye, Chris. Chris rushed to the door, went into the freezing snow atmosphere, and went as far as he was able to see to the top of the roof, where he was able to see the outlines of Jamie, the horrific Santa. Jamie forced to couple hands with him. He said, "So, Chris, this is it. Your last time to be able to see my girl ever again. And never again. Will you make me not see these eyes never again? Will you stand in my way? I will be able to keep these eyes with me. The good girl is always with me." Chris saw the Santa reach into his pocket. A knife emerged from within his pocket. "These eyes will be mine, so will she. Do you hear me, Chris?" As the Santa finished that sentence, with full force, shoved the knife into Jamie's left eye. Blood spilled out, spitting in the shadows. Jamie just fell on the floor screaming, but the Santa just sang, "Stand up, let me carve your beautiful eyes." The Santa forced Jamie back up, holding her face up. But nothing happened. Once again, it fell silent. Chris, as I will say to everyone, have a very Merry Christmas and a very Happy New Year, and all a good night. By his final words, Chris stared, and they disappeared in a matter of moments. No fall, nothing. Gone into oblivion. Chris turned the music off and opened the box. To his pure shock, it was a blood-covered, pulsating eye. Staring right into his own, the inside of the box filled and splattered with thick, red, dark blood. The revolting eye moved side to side in the box, as if moved to banked. It was horrifying. Absolutely carnage. And then the radio flicked back on. Up next, the greatest pop song for Christmas. Christmas Through Your Eyes. Chris's eyes widened, just listening as the song played in his ears. Wind tickled his neck. Chris, thank you. She is such a good girl." And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? Let's go back again. Another short story for you guys, written by Vivian Justin. Remember to leave the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Story 6, Sky. The city of Monroe woke up to a stormy morning. Rain pounded the windows from all directions. Trees were bent, and the thinner branches were broken. Power was also out in many places.
A storm of this magnitude had not been seen in years. Jamie and his family took shelter in the basement living room. The two young children were very scared. Jamie was most worried about the windows and the surrounding trees. The fierce winds had stopped and the rain had stopped, so Jamie and his family went upstairs in peace. Jamie looked at the damage. His house had escaped unscathed, with only some damage to the garden. Jamie stood on the porch. He was amazed at the sky. It was a blood red. Passers-by watched in horror as the raindrops, now red, fell on the road. Everyone immediately looked at his body, dripping red rain. The sky was getting gloomier. Jamie gasped for air. The children ran to him, but he shooed them off. One by one, he stepped off the steps and walked beside the bewildered crowd. He heard everything. Someone shouted that the gates of hell had opened. Others thought the unusual phenomenon was a curse from God because people were living in sin. Someone else wanted to draw parallels with meteorology. The man looked at the blood-colored rain that had gathered in the palm of his hand and was slowly overflowing. He clenched his fists and stared at the rain dripping down his hands, as if it wasn't real. A golden crack, about 1.5 meters across, appeared in the sky. Everyone watched with open mouths. Some people ran away, trying to escape the kill, while others had their feet rooted to the ground. The crack widened, and 4 riders stepped through. The horsemen were covered in a black shroud. Their horses were skeleton. They descended to the ground, and from there, the men fled in a frenzy. One of the horsemen drew a long, sharp sword from under his cloak and made a very eerie sound. He struck the sword against the road, which immediately split in two. Several men fell in. The horsemen pointed their fingers at one man, and they immediately lit up. In a snap, they were reduced to dust. Jamie rushed into the house, and with 2 children in his arms, hurried down the cellar. They locked themselves in as he worked to calm the little ones. One of the men in black stood in front of the mayor. He cut him in half with a swing of his sword. Another set the houses on fires. Next thing you know, the streets were empty. The vast majority were already dead. Others were hiding. Then the rider raised his hand to the sky, clapped his hands. Next thing you know, all who were hiding were seized by the invisible force that led them straight to the horsemen. Jamie and the children cried. The force separated them. The bloody rain became more intense, more frequent. One of the riders lifted the local undertaker high into the air, and with that momentum, threw him into the road. The Jamie could see golden colors running down the cracks in the road. An earthquake followed, and the Jamies were held in the air by a force almost demonic. Suddenly, they heard noises in the distance. Most of the survivors looked in that direction. Many people appeared, but they were no longer human. Their eyes were completely black, and blood was gushing from their tear ducts. They surrounded the riders, and one after another, they picked out the men from the invisible force. Jamie looked worriedly at his children. He looked down and saw below him 2 black-eyed men tearing his neighbor to pieces. Body parts were flying everywhere. Jamie gasped for air. With only 5 of them left, Jamie thought of escape, but the force would not let him move. He looked desperately ahead of him, straight behind the rider's cloak. Their black eyes flicked down at the children. Jamie screamed, but all in vain. Jamie had completely lost all hope. The rider pulled him down between them. Jamie was surrounded by the 4 riders, and behind them were the black-eyed men. One handed him a black shroud. After a few seconds of hesitation, Jamie took it. He adjusted it to himself, and everything he knew about the world, everyone he knew, vanished into thin air, and an unfamiliar feeling came over him. The riders were now 5, and through the crack, they left with Jamie. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again with another short horror story written by Vivian Justin. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Sand. They had no idea where they were, but they must have turned off somewhere. The map was useless here, as there were so many side roads that were not marked. Gordon, as the now slowly retiring archaeologist, was the guide. 6 university students had volunteered to accompany him on this research in the hope for a better grade. They were cold to what Gordon was explaining, just blindly following the man, who also didn't know where they were going at the moment. The catacombs of the abandoned church were chilling. Sometimes they walked in narrow places, sometimes in water, and sometimes they seemed to be going uphill. The students really enjoyed it. It was like a horror movie for them. They were jumping on each other. Gordon was less happy about it. He was terribly worried. The road narrowed, and there was only a narrow opening to crawl straight through. One by one, Gordon and the students crept through the passage. But Barry, the slightly stocky student, was stuck. Panic overwhelmed him. He screamed at the top of his lungs as the passage scrambled. Gordon urged him to calm down, but Barry didn't hear him. The stones shifted, began to crumble. Barry panicked even more. Gordon did everything he could to help him. Barry gave a scream, then something grabbed his leg and pulled him back before the big boulder could hit. Gordon shouted Barry's name, but got no reply. The rock was the only thing that could get between them, and the man immediately looked for another passage to get back to Barry, unsuccessfully. All right, look, let's just keep moving, and as soon as we get out, we'll send someone for Barry. The team reluctantly moved on. Everyone wondered who could have rescued him. Gordon left the back roads and just kept going straight on. Then suddenly he stopped at the top of a rise. There was a desperation ahead, full of sand. He climbed down and started walking. He waved to the students, and one by one, they cautiously climbed down. They were almost halfway down when Gordon stopped and looked at the depression. He reached for the map and pointed in one direction. Then Kate burst in a huge shout. Something had cut her ankle. They were all startled. Gordon crawled as far as he could across the sand to her. Suddenly, two horns emerged from the sand, followed shortly after by a body. Everyone watched in amazement. On its head were two sharp horns, one of which was decorated with Barry's body. His face was like a skull of a hippopotamus. It had a slender yet strong body with long claws on 3 of its fingers. A creature, almost 10 feet tall, began to roar. No one dared move. Gordon gasped for breath. He didn't know what to do. It could barely move in the sand. Suddenly, the creature's roar stopped, and with one finger, it pierced Kate's body completely. The sight made everyone run for their lives. It lifted the body to its mouth and sucked all the blood out of its lifeless body where it had pierced it, and then simply threw it into the sand. Gordon watched for a few seconds as the students tried to make their way down the passage. The monster lifted its feet out of the sand, and with that momentum, he stomped on one of the students under the sand. He lifted it up between its fingers and, finding it still alive, threw it hard against the wall. The wall shook and debris fell into the sand. By the time Gordon realized that only 3 of his students were still alive, the monster had picked Mike up again and bared his sharp teeth, mauled him to pieces. What a massacre, Gordon thought to himself. Honestly, he saw no chance of survival. But he relaxed a little when he saw that 2 students were already close to the corridor. He took his chance and worked to distract them. He was shouting and shouting, but the monster was still munching on Mike's body. Gordon climbed to the front of one of the passageways, trying to get his attention. The creature threw away the remains of Mike's body and headed in Gordon's direction. As soon as he saw his students in the cavern, he felt a warm sensation. The creature had sliced through both knees with a flick of its fingers. The man screamed and immediately fell. All he could do was look at his severed body parts. After a few tears, the 2 students started walking straight. One stopped and took a deep breath. The only thing that would help them right now was Gordon and the map. Gordon was almost bleeding to death. He fumbled in his pocket. He wanted to smoke one last cigarette. With the cigarette, he pulled the map from his pocket. He looked at it with widened eyes. Then he saw the 2 boys. The creature suddenly emerged from the sand and grabbed both students. Gordon lit his cigarette. I'm only here for you. And lo and behold, you're real. He pointed in the direction of the monster. A delighted smile came over his face. Slowly, he took a drag on his cigarette. He watched as he tore the 2 bodies to pieces. That's the best cigarette I've had, other than after sex. The creature lowered its head and struck Gordon's body up next to Barry. He wiped Gordon's blood with his finger and threw his shanks into the sand. Finally, he too sank into the sand until his horns were completely covered. And see, it was real. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? Let's go back again. Another short horror story for you guys, written by Vivi and Justin. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Story 3, Puppet. Joanne had a reputation as a successful young singer. She launched one album after another, one concert after another. She had all the tools to become a world-famous artist. Her manager and her father did everything possible to ensure that her daughter made as much money as possible. He saw only money in her talent. He took full advantage of his daughter, who enjoyed the attention of her father regardless of everything. The crew went to Boston for a big concert. So far, over 80,000 people had bought tickets. Joanne was very nervous, but also very happy. She had never had such a large audience. On the eve of the concert, the crew noticed that Joanne was acting strangely. Her speech was slurred, her movements were unsteady. They simply didn't know whether her behavior was caused by the stress of the concert or by something else. Everyone had gone to bed when Greg heard a noise coming from behind his bedroom door. He slowly climbed out of bed and headed upstairs. He wiped his eyes and walked straight to the door. He opened it, but was greeted by emptiness. When he laid back down, the same noise filtered into the room. He pushed open the door and bumped into Joanne at the foot of the corridor walls. Greg carried her into the room and laid her on her bed. Joanne just stared at the ceiling with a shaky face. With half an ear, he could hear the man calling to him. But he simply could not answer. There was just no strength in him. It was as if he had been simply switched off. The next day, nothing of Joanne's behavior of the previous day was noticeable. Although the whole room was filled with the sound of her father's exasperation, who was talking about a software glitch on his phone, everyone was listening to him. As the time approached, Joanne became more and more nervous. She was afraid that the concert would not go as planned. Somehow, she felt that her limbs were not moving as she would have liked, and her speech changed from one moment to the next. Joanne took the stage to find herself facing the stares of tens of thousands of people. She found it shocking. One song followed another, but she wasn't sure what she was doing. She deduced from the huge cheers that she was doing what she was doing well. The audience went wild and applauded happily in the air for their favorite star. The light show was just icing on the cake. Everyone wanted to get closer to their favorite star, and her manager was on the phone with a happy face. The increased income, in the meantime, filled his soul with warmth. He no longer cared what he pressed on the phone. Joanne suddenly stumbled, but corrected the slip without attracting attention. She was losing more and more control over her own body. Suddenly, a strange feeling came over her. It was like a time bomb had gone off. The manager jumped into his car and left the venue before the concert was over, watching the action from a distance of about 2 kilometers. The stadium was level with the ground. The whole thing exploded with all the fans crews, and vendors. There was nothing left of it. The father dropped a tear, but quickly wiped it from his face. A smile came over his face. A few years ago, when Joanne was still fluttering her wings, she had a chip implanted. It was experimental, of course. She jumped at the idea. From then on, her father didn't let his daughter stray off course. He controlled her speech and her movements. The biggest hit of the Boston concert came when Greg told her she was talentless. Now, he's written himself into the history books for eternity. Now, the name of my talentless self will live on forever. He drove to the police building with a smile. He gave himself up without hesitation. He wanted his name and face to be everywhere. His plan has succeeded. His face appeared on every TV program with a smug smile. That, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again with another horror story from you guys, written by Vivian Justin. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them, like, comment, and subscribe. Story 2, Prom. The city's rich and famous are preparing for a dazzling prom. It was held in August every year. About 17 couples from the rich and 10 from the poorer classes attended. From their wardrobes, they took out their most elegant attire. The rest of the town always watched enviously as the well-dressed couples paraded through the streets. The poorer of the 10 couples were transported by limousine to the ball. Every single guest was eagerly awaiting the event. The rich guests were always a constant. The poor changed from year to year. As soon as all the guests arrived, the doors of the building were closed and they were led into a huge hall. In addition to the hall, there were 4 living rooms, a kitchen, 3 bathrooms, a large cellar, and a living room. Long stairs led up from the hall to the bedrooms. The round tables were joined by 4 chairs. They sat around it, and as soon as the last guest was seated, a horde of waiters appeared with plates in their hands. The 4-course feast was eye-catching in appearance, but it was a taste that took the cake. At the end of the meal, the waiters collected the plates. Soft music played in the background and the lights dimmed. At the top of the stairs was a very handsome man in a mask, holding a microphone. The rich people stood up from the table and arranged themselves in a pile. Following the instructions of the masked man, the poor have to survive for 2 hours with the rich they hunt. Those who survive are elevated to the ranks of the rich, along with their families. They get enough money to last them 3 lifetimes. Unfortunately, those who die are the same. The poor were immediately frightened. The waiters were delivering weapons to the rich. All right, 10 minutes head start. As soon as they hear the shot, the 2 hours begin. The shot is fired. The poor began to run for their heads. Some tried to leave to the door, some ran towards the cellar, and others towards the sleeping quarters. They hid under the bed, some in the closet. They even hid in the furthest corner of the cellar, under the stairs. At the end of 10 minutes, the rich people left. They did not rush. They just spread out and hunted calmly. The masked man stood in the middle of the room, directing the waiters. The tables and chairs were moved, and a platform was brought from the corner and set up for the musicians. They brought the instruments, which consisted of a guitar, a synthesizer, and a violin. There was a constant sound of gunfire, both from upstairs and from the basement. Those who died were taken by the waiters to the separate corner of the room. There, they were placed on elegant chairs and tied down to prevent their bodies from falling off the chairs. 9 chairs were already taken, and the masked man looked over the 9 with pleasure. Over again, people were brought down from the floor. They were fewer and fewer, and the 2 hours passed slowly. Only 53 minutes had passed, but they were already sitting in 14 chairs. The masked man was less than happy about this, mostly because he expected much more entertainment. He thought the poor would be more creative when it came to their lives. He was disappointed. 4 more people had chairs, and that one was persistent and violent enough to be one of them. There were 2 more bangs. 3 men were called into the room by 2 rich men, with guns pressed to their backs. They shook. 2 were shot on sight. The other was left alive. 1 man was missing, but he was nowhere to be found. They searched everywhere. They were getting nervous. 2 hours passed. The masked man shouted into the microphone, but he was nowhere to be found. They couldn't find him until everyone came out of the kitchen. Then the masked man approached the man and said, "I didn't hire you." He was the last one. He was not found for 2 hours. He's pretty sneaky, the masked man thought. The winner was then placed in the middle of the stage. They led away the poor man who was still alive. and a gun was placed in the winner's hand. He shot him without hesitation. His life could finally get better. The musicians began to play. The rich applauded, and the broke into dance of joy. The masked man stood next to the winner and patted him on the shoulder to congratulate him. "That's the worst movie I've ever seen," said one of the young people in the cinema. "Yeah, it was totally boring. Let's go." And he threw a can of popcorn at the screen. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? So let's go back again. Another short horror story written by Vivi and Justin. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Story 5, Jungle. James and Morgan were heading deep into the jungle. It was their vocation and their hobby. They went to areas where either no one or very few people had ever been. They loved exploring new areas. James packed a rucksack and a small suitcase. He planned to leave the suitcase at the hotel and just take the backpack with him. Morgan had a harder job. He had a lot of stationary notebooks. He kept notes of the whole trip in a somewhat diary-like fashion. They were afraid of this trip. This place is where only their professor and a few of his colleagues had been. They reported hearing some very scary noises. But James and Morgan's curiosity was only heightened. They boarded the plane with shaky legs from excitement. The plane took off. He fell asleep immediately while Morgan went over the planned route again and again. She calculated that if all went well, they could leave for home a day after tomorrow morning. Their plane would land at 3 this afternoon. They'd check into the hotel and be on their way that evening. Tomorrow night, they'll sleep in the hotel. James woke up to Morgan's alarm. Their plane descended and landed nicely. They took a taxi to the hotel. They quickly picked up the 2 suitcases and set off with their rucksacks. Morgan led the way, James close behind. They made their way into the jungle, avoiding the many warning signs. James was no longer a bit worried, but she was. As they moved further and further in, James could no longer see a path behind them. Another problem was that he felt as if 1,000 eyes were watching him all the time. They had been walking for hours before they reached the place where the professors were camped. It was the first stop, although Morgan would have kept going. Night had fallen, and James was roasting on a spit over the fire, while Morgan looked around a bit. He had that strange feeling, again, that he was being watched. But no one was there. He heard voices in the trees. He called to Morgan, but got no answer. It made him even more desperate. He heard the scary sounds more and more, the branches cracking. Then, Morgan appeared in front of him. He was all right. They were sleeping peacefully in the tent when James suddenly woke up. He heard another noise, and it was as if someone or something was crawling around the tent. He cautiously crawled out from beside Morgan as if he had been in water, but ignoring him, he jumped out of the tent. He saw tracks. It was like 100 branches snapping in the woods at once. His rapid breathing and bulging eyes were visible signs of fear from deep within. There was complete silence. After a few minutes of silent standing, he laid back down. In the morning, he woke up to find Morgan gone. He immediately ran out and shouted, but there was no answer from her. James walked a few meters into the jungle from all directions, but Morgan was nowhere to be found. He went back hoping that while he packed up the tent, she would appear. It was then he realized that what he had thought was water at night was actually blood. He threw up behind him. On closer inspection, there wasn't as much as if anyone had died. James had lost his senses and was doing everything in his power to find Morgan. He ran into the woods like a fool. Early afternoon. James shouted in vain. No one answered. He was completely lost in the jungle. He leaned against a tree and cried. After a while, he pulled himself together and started shouting Morgan's name again. Evening. He sat down. In this tickled his feet. He heard strange noises behind him, but he was no longer afraid if it might lead him to Morgan. The surroundings were getting louder. It was as if he could hear footsteps behind them. He sat up and stared ahead of him. Secretly, he wished she was the only one messing with him, but it didn't. A huge, hairy arm grabbed him by the throat and pulled him down into the depths. Night. He woke up to find himself lying on the ground right next to Morgan's body. She lay with a face as peaceful as perhaps he had ever seen her, but her belly was completely ripped open. He would have screamed, but no sound came out of his mouth in shock. Then he slowly looked around. He saw no movement anywhere. The only thing that kept him from fleeing was Morgan. He couldn't leave her like this. He looked around again and again. Then he remembered the professor's note to always come back to the hotel. But where was that? James struggled to his feet. He looked behind him, and that's when he saw the horror. An ape-like creature with a huge body and arms. When it bared its teeth, the word razor sharp came to James' mind first. Its eyes were red, and it roared and charged at James. Morning. The hotel receptionist was able to follow their journey to the jungle entrance because they hadn't checked out on time. He stopped just outside the entrance. Then the owner appeared beside him. They were allowed to walk the same way as the others. No one read the sign. No trespassing due to infection. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of our story. Yo, what is up, everybody? Ceresco back again with another short horror story written by Vivian Justin. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to them. Like, comment, and subscribe. Forest. He ran into the forest as if he had never been caught. His back already hurt from the blows of the rifle, but he might be able to protect himself and his family with this. Those aughts in the sky could control anyone, to put it from one place to another, or just simply kill it. Frederick finally reached their house.